Welcome, everyone, FS Insight family and community. We have a webinar today, and I'm really delighted to be having a fireside chat with the CEO of Cadence Design Systems, Dr. Anirudh Devgan. I wanted to give kind of a brief overview of Cadence, why we think this is really one of the most important companies and so well positioned as we think about the future of AI and 5G and autonomous driving and really all things that consume silicon. Cadence is a $54 billion market cap company, so it's a very sizable player. And it's an award-winning company led by a CEO that's himself received many awards. And I'm pretty shocked at how investors often aren't including this when they are thinking of AI plays and thinking about future trends within technology. So I do think it's a stock that if anyone is trying to buy, the FANGs and the big themes, it really should be part of that portfolio. And that's why Cadence is a granny shot. And to give you an idea of why you really should care, if we look at the last 5 years, August of 2018, the S&P was 2,900. So it's risen roughly 50% in the last 5 years. Cadence was $47 5 years ago, and today is $240. So you would have earned over 300, well, actually close to 400% owning Cadence. And that's a lifetime of equity gains that you would have earned in 5 years. And I do think in the next 5 years, because of the addressable market growing so quickly, I mean, McKinsey estimates are staggering around the growth of AI, just AI alone, and how Cadence is expanding its product set to include more services and more devices are more chip intensive. I think it's very easy to see why Cadence will outgrow anything happening in terms of AI. The company receives a lot of recognition within the industry. Last year, TSMC gave this a OIP Partner of the Year award. Well, that's pretty huge recognition. Cadence also has won something called the Gold Stevie Awards for international business, and its awards included being the most innovative tech company of the year. And Forbes 100 considers this one of the 100 best places to work. Now, Dr. Anirudh Devgan is the president and CEO of Cadence. He's been in that role since 2021, and he's been with the company since 2012. He himself is recognized as one of the leading authorities in EDA, or electronic design automation, and he himself has received or holds 27 patents, which I think is pretty staggering. But among the many awards he's received include the prestigious Phil Kaufman Award for his contributions to EDA, as well as the IBM Corporate Award and the IEEE McCalla Award. And he's on the board of the Semiconductor Alliance and the Electronic System Design Alliance. Now, we have had Cadence on our Granny Shots list since January of this year, but we've known of the company for a long time, from my days at JP Morgan. And they've started at the core with being EDA, but today they do system products, and they've grown with their own customers and provide increasingly sophisticated software. Dr. Devgan and I met this year on the West Coast. I think we had a great conversation, and I really have been impressed by almost everything, well, really everything I've met in terms of the folks and the teams at Cadence. And, he's made some really interesting keynote speeches. I do want to bring him in, but a few things I just want to highlight is, he's stated specifically that he believes we're in this golden era of semiconductors, that semis, as a consequence, become less cyclical. And that makes sense. More products don't use silicon. And if they do, increasingly, you don't really have boom bust cycles. And he's noted that systems companies are now using and designing their own chips. Data centers are doing the same. And at the heart of that is EDA. It's sort of key to the design process and system design process. And everything in the future, whether it's the metaverse, 5G, AI, autonomous vehicles, all involve using chips. So with that, I would like to sort of start our fireside chat with a few questions, and then we'll open it up to audience questions. But I guess the best way to start might be if someone looked at your company today and wanted to understand the role you play in technology. Could you kind of just give us an overview of what the company does?
Thank you, Tom. It's great to be here. And, I've followed your work for years. We met this year, but, I followed your work on TV and other forums, and it's truly remarkable work that you're doing. So it's a pleasure to talk to you today and to your audience. In terms of a brief overview of Cadence, basically we make the software that design chips and electronic systems. So as you know, there are chips in almost everything today, anything digital, anything that has, electronics and software is powered by semiconductors. And then these chips are pretty complicated. They're probably the most complicated things humans have ever developed. These days you can have a chip, at 3 nanometer pitch, which will have in 1 inch, like 100 billion transistors. This is truly a remarkable thing. And to design these chips at that scale, they cannot be designed manually. So for years, they have been designed with software. And we are one of the leading providers of that software that designs these chips and electronic systems. So I would like to say almost any chip designed in the world today uses some form of Cadence software. And so we participate in all end markets, all verticals, and all geographies. And we are very focused on R&D, because this is kind of difficult stuff. Of course, everybody thinks what they do is hard, but this is, a lot of mathematical, numerical software is required to design these chips and electronics. So, 90% of our headcount is computer scientists and engineers. We invest like 35% of revenue in R&D, which is probably the highest of any kind of S&P company. And also we have a ratable business model. So, 90% of our revenue is ratable, mostly on 3-year deals. So that also gives us a longer time horizon to do fundamental R&D to design this kind of software that powers all the kind of chips and electronic systems.
Right. Our audience is well aware of some of these huge stories out there from AI and 5G and autonomous driving, etc. And I'd love it to tell me where you guys think you might be the best positioned, or are you guys just best positioned across everything?
Yeah, actually, it's a good way to look at that is like what's happening in the market. Okay, so my opinion is that we look at the world in terms of 3 kind of concentric circles. Okay. So, and this is happening in multiple end markets. So the inner circle is silicon. Then the next circle is system. And then the circle after that is data. Okay. And a perfect example of that is like an electric car. So you have all the navigation data, all the traffic information, the maps. So there's a lot of data anyway. And then there is actual physical car, which is now a combination of hardware and software, and combination of electrical and mechanical. Both electronics and there's electrification of almost everything. So there's data circle, and then the actual system, and then the actual silicon that drives the car, whether it's self-driving chips or, in-vehicle entertainment. So this silicon, system, and data 3 circles is happening in almost all end markets. So whether it is, mobile phones or data centers or automotive or connectivity or life sciences. So that's our worldview. And some of these circles are merging with each other. For example, the semiconductor and system circle is merging because a lot of the semi companies are doing system companies are doing semi. And of course, the system and data circle is. And our true value is we write this kind of mathematical computational software, right? So if you apply that to silicon, that's EDA, that's the IC design automation. That's our kind of heritage, and that's what we are best in the world at. But then this computational software can be applied to systems and data as well. So when you apply computational software to systems, that's system design and analysis. That's simulating cars and planes and aerodynamics. And that's a big market also. And then computational software applied to data is the definition of AI. I mean, AI by nature is computational. And a lot of the underlying math is, matrix algebra, which we have done for years. So our core focus is EDA, which is semiconductor design, and then system design and analysis, and then AI. So these are the three big. But these are all horizontal technologies in my mind, and then they can be verticalized to different verticals. And there are, that's the good thing about Cadence is, if you look at most of our revenue is coming, from the top 50 customers. Probably 60% of our revenue is coming from top 50. And that's almost like, like Dow Jones, like the top 50 we had 10 years ago is not the same now because new markets come in and new customers come in. And, like, for example, now AI is big and, automotive is big and several things. Mobile is always big. But the customers may shift a little bit, but we are fortunate to play in all the verticals. So right now, of course, mobile is always big. Computing is big, but AI is emerging as a huge application. Automotive, I think, can be huge. So in terms of semiconductors, 500 billion, that's like what our end customers are making in terms of market size, could easily go to 1 trillion in the next, several years. And then the electronics market is at least $3 trillion, with cars and phones and play. So there's a lot of opportunity for us to participate in all the vertical end markets.
Right. Yeah, actually, on that subject, I was pretty impressed by the breadth of partnerships that you guys are involved with, especially as you're talking about systems and also data. And I mean, among your partnerships is, obviously you're obviously very big with companies like NVIDIA, but it's really things like Tesla and their Dojo supercomputer and McLaren, the car company, and even the 49ers. So do you mind elaborating? I know you kind of touched on these, but elaborating on those partnerships. And again, like as you mentioned, you're doing work with simulations and actually how vehicles and other devices act.
Yes, absolutely, Tom. So I mean, the great privilege we have, which is great work of our customers and our team, is we get to participate in all geographies and all end markets. Okay, so like I mentioned before, almost any chip designed today uses some form of Cadence software. So we are lucky to have a kind of front row seat, and we have a culture of partnering with the leading companies in the respective verticals. So we are making the software that designs these chips and systems. But of course, the key thing is working with the top customers, learning from the top customers, and having those kind of deep trusted partnerships. And we also want to align with the winners in each of these big vertical waves, right? So for example, with AI, we have a deep partnership with NVIDIA. And I think Jensen talked about it in his keynote in Taiwan a couple of months ago. And also AI is not just the companies like NVIDIA who are doing it, but a lot of the hyperscalers are also designing their own chips. So like you mentioned, Tesla is designing Dojo supercomputer. They're also designing their own chips for the car, like self-driving chips. I mean, a lot of it is public like Amazon is making chips for their servers, Graviton, which is doing pretty well in the market. And then they're also making, ML chips. Google is well known as designing chips like TPUs for AI. And then they also have chips for YouTube to make video processing, make YouTube experience a lot better. Even ByteDance, TikTok is designing their own chips. Xiaomi is designing their own Alibaba. So it's a worldwide phenomena, and we are privileged to have this opportunity to collaborate. I mean, so like data center, I think is going to be huge. Already, silicon is used in a lot of things, as you know. But I think the emerging things, of course, AI and data center can be significant boost. It can add hundreds of billions of semiconductor content. Okay, automotive. Right now, there are about 120 million cars sold worldwide. And as these cars get electrified, the amount of silicon content is going to increase. So there's a lot of projections that, because in the past, the differentiation has been in the engine, like you have an AMG engine, you have a special engine. But if you go to battery-powered cars, the differentiation is going to come from in-vehicle experience, self-driving and entertainment and automation. So there's a lot of projection that each car may consume about $2,000 of semiconductor. Okay. That, if that's true, and that's not unreasonable, if the car is going to be, $30,000-$40,000 per car, that the main differentiator will be the electronics, and they could consume about $2,000 of semiconductor. Okay, that's 120 million cars. Even if, that's 250 billion of extra semiconductor content, okay, just from auto. And then, AI, there's a lot of projection that it could be a couple of 100 billion or more of semiconductor content. So these two, and then of course, mobile will be strong, will continue to be strong with the upgrade cycle. So there are all these big verticals, and we are closely working with all the leading companies in these verticals to enable this. Of course, we don't make the chips, but we make the software that make the chips happen. So without our software, it was virtually impossible to design these chips.
Great. And I guess on that topic, I know in an earlier discussion we had, the semiconductor industry is projected to essentially double in size to about $1 trillion by the end of this decade. And that's, let's say just in rough numbers, almost 10% growth, high single digit annual growth. Because your addressable market is growing on top of the market for semiconductors growing, and on top of the products and services you're offering, it almost makes me think that the growth rate of Cadence should be, and I know you don't give forward guidance, but should be faster than the overall industry itself.
Well, yeah, I think if you look at it, first thing is in terms of our philosophy and culture, we always focus on revenue growth and profitability. Because in the end, right, what we want to deliver is EPS to our investors, so that's a combination of both those things, right? So, and we have consistently improved our profitability also. And if you look at last 5 years, our EPS growth has been in the, low 20s, about 22, 23% a year over the last 5 years. And even this year, our revenue growth is, what guidance we have given is about 14% revenue growth for 23, with about close to 42% operating margin. So that combination of revenue growth plus margin, I believe, is unique in the market. There are very few companies that can deliver that. Normally people talk about rule of 40 as a golden metric if your revenue growth plus margin can be over 40. So we are well above 40 for a year. Right now we are well above 50. And we intend to maintain that, going forward, right? So in terms of how well we are positioned, yes, I do believe we are, even though we are well positioned 5 years ago, I do believe we are better positioned than 5 years from now for the next 5 years. And we will always focus on both profitability and revenue growth. And I still believe that there is room to keep expanding our profitability, like we have done in the last few years.
Great. Okay. Well, yeah, and just my observation, because I've covered many companies over the years. I do think when you look at secular, sort of secular themes, whether it was mobile web or internet or cellular or data centers and now AI, companies that really sit in the what you call middleware or providing central tools end up capturing a lot of value. In wireless, that was the tower companies, and really enjoyed. I mean, even today, almost 30 years later, I mean, tower companies have held on to those margins. So I do think that's a really big differentiator, sort of where you guys sit. And this question had come in earlier to us from a client, and I'm going to sort of throw it out again, which is that, there's been a lot of focus on consumer AI, like whether it's ChatGPT or, things from Meta. But I know that Cadence is doing a lot of things on enterprise data and AI solutions like Jet AI. And so this client was just hoping you talk about bringing AI into your product portfolio and how it kind of impacts Cadence in the future.
Absolutely. And of course, AI is a big topic. It's a huge topic these days. And some people say it's like overhyped. Some people say it's just the beginning, And also one issue with AI is that, people call everything AI. That's one issue. And right now, almost everything is rebranded as AI. That's not just true with companies. That's true with universities. Even if you look at universities, they're rebranding computer science and AI. So there's a little bit of, there's a lot of good things in AI, but there's also like, what do you actually call AI? What is the definition of AI? But I do think that the newer AIs, because, some of the AI or machine learning could be just regression that was done for years, right? Or curve fitting. But some of the newer technologies in AI are truly transformational. Okay, it's truly transformational. And I think we can talk more about that. I have an opinion on how transformational AI could be. And I think we are in the very, very, from a technology standpoint, in the very, very early innings of AI. And especially the last few years, some of these advancement in, these transformer models, foundation models, these large models powered by, GPU training. So for us, there are three ways that we participate or leverage AI. So, and I think a lot of times people compare AI to the internet, but I do think it's like more foundational than the internet. But even if we just compare it to the internet, what happened in the 90s? So the first thing I believe will happen with the internet is the infrastructure part, the build out of the infrastructure or the networking. So in AI also, that will be the first thing, which is this. And you can see that now with NVIDIA and other kind of AI chips. You need these chips because you cannot train these AI models without running them on this special purpose hardware, okay? Whether it's GPUs or other things. So we are, deeply partnering with all the companies that are building these chips. Of course, NVIDIA is the key leader, but there are other companies, like AMD, and then like Tesla. We talked about system companies doing their own chips. Google have talked about it. Meta has talked about it publicly. So almost all the big companies are building AI-enabled products. So either they're at the data center or they're automotive or they're embedded. So that's a big part of our customer. And that will be the first kind of monetization of AI, will be the infrastructure build out. And we are central in that, helping to build that. The second part, so this is more of a horizontal enablement of AI. And then there are vertical enablements of AI. So the first, and this thing happened with the internet as well, if you make the comparison. So the vertical enablement is like putting AI in your own product. Okay, whether it's like designing chips or, Google search or PowerPoint, or writing code. And I think that will be significant. So we have invested for years into these newer, this generative AI or reinforcement learning based algorithms. And they are very, very good at optimization, or now what is called generative design. Because I think AI orchestration what it can do is that it can automate a lot of the mundane tasks that the designer is doing or any human is doing, and make the designer focus on higher value, higher tasks. So that is true in the design process. See, the design process, a lot of it is, even though we have very powerful tools, I mean, a lot of time our users are spending, and that these designers in these great companies are spending, is running our tools, running our products, changing some parameters, running again, because they're searching the design space. Okay? And typically what happens is, for R&D, for our customers, about 10% is going to automation, to like our kind of software, and 90% is going to people. Okay. That's the typical, roughly, it's slightly, it has gone up over the years. So now it's slightly more than 10%. It used to be slightly less than 10%. So that's what is happening. But a lot of that is mundane work that can be automated with AI, especially if the chip complexity is going to increase significantly. Okay. So the chips are going to get 30, 40 times more complex in the next 7 years. We can get into why I think that is. So there is no way that our customers or in general can hire 30, 40 times more engineers. That's not going to happen. They will still hire more engineers, like maybe 2, 3 times more, but the remaining 10x gap has to be made up with automation. So there's a big opportunity of, like, if a customer is spending 90% on people and 10% on automation, I think the overall R&D budget will grow anyway, but the share of that automation can increase, can go much higher than 10% as more and more of the mundane tasks can be automated. And I can give you a lot of examples of, our software with AI. We have special generative AI tools that can improve the productivity by 10x of the design process, can also improve the performance. See, that's the other thing. So there is a productivity improvement, but a lot of times the design is better that can be done manually, because the AI is doing it mathematically across all design space. So in a lot of cases, we can get 10, 15% better power or performance or area than a manual design. So that's a huge value to our customers. So that's the value of AI sometimes ignored, is that the result can be better, not that result can be faster, because it's a more comprehensive search of the design space. So I do believe that it can give a lot of value, and the way we can get to that is our, in terms of monetization, is the customers will spend more on automation, less on people. But this will take time as a percentage. I mean, the number of headcount will still grow, but there's an opportunity to do more automation there. So that's the second part of AI. So the first part was horizontal build out of infrastructure. Second was applying it to our own products, and this will happen in search, it will happen in other areas, but there's a huge opportunity in chip design because it's very complicated, and system design. Now, the third part of AI, which also happened in internet, for example, is new products will emerge that are only possible with AI, or that is only possible with internet. To complete the analogy, things like Twitter or Facebook was not even possible without the internet, right? So, and that's the third stage of AI, and that will take some time. It may take like 5-10 years for them to emerge. So the question is, what new products will emerge that are not possible right now? Okay, so AI at its core, and we can talk more about it, it's a pattern-based science. It's like data pattern-based science. So I believe that there could be multiple new products that can emerge, but the most promising in my mind is life sciences. See, in the end, like the medicine has to, we have worked for the last 30, 40 years to put like computer science and physics together with semiconductors and all, right? And chemistry. But I think biology and computer science in the end have to merge. And that's the biggest value, one of the biggest values to humanity. So there is a lot of potential of life sciences and AI, which of course your viewers will know. And so we also investing in that. And this is a longer term investment. So last year I bought a company to do numerical simulation of molecules. So just like we simulate chips and systems, the same math can be can be applied to simulate molecules and for drug discovery and development. It's a very exciting company. There are only 3 companies in the world at scale that can do that, and we bought one of them. And then there is a lot of potential to apply AI on top for life sciences. So from a Cadence standpoint, the 3 ways we are looking at it is, the first way is the infrastructure build out for AI. Second way is applying to our own current products for chip design and system design. And third way is computational life sciences.
Right. That's really helpful. We've got a number of questions from the FS Insight community. We did a survey recently, and about 70% of FS Insight are institutional, in the sense that they're either an RIA or family office, but they're typically not necessarily specialized in technology. So I'm going to kind of group 3 of these questions together, and the question is really, and some of these are going to be basic, but one is, could you compare what Cadence does versus NVIDIA, which I think you can answer simply. And then what are the competitors that you compete with today for all the tools that you guys develop?
Yes. So, what we supply is software. Okay. We supply software and some hardware products to aid the design of chips and electronics. So for somebody like NVIDIA is a great customer of ours. So they will use our software to design the chip, like a GPU, for example, which is critical for AI. And then they will send it to somebody like TSMC, for example, to manufacture. So the ecosystem to make this happen, it requires the TSMC, which is doing all the manufacturing. We don't do any manufacturing. NVIDIA, that is actually making the product to their specification, and then the software you need to make that happen. Because like I said before, this is too complicated. So we will supply our software. We will be partners with TSMC and Samsung and Intel and all the leading fabs in the world, global foundries and all, so that our software is enabled at, we have a long-term partnership with TSMC. Most of their flows are, working closely with Cadence. And then somebody like NVIDIA will use our software to design their chips. So NVIDIA will be our customer and partner along with TSMC. And then there would be some IP providers. We provide our own IP, or ARM could have their own IP. And NVIDIA, for example, is also using ARM cores or other people. So this kind of ecosystem to make these things happen. Now, in terms of competitors, the market has consolidated a lot. Like if you go back 15 years ago, there were a lot of companies in this space, but now these things get pretty complicated to design these chips at, very advanced node, like 5 nanometer, 3 nanometer. So right now in the industry, there are only 2 main companies, Cadence and Synopsys, that provide the software to design these chips. Okay. And the unique value we have versus our competitors, first of all, we are much broader. So we have analog software, design software, digital verification, packaging. So in terms of core EDA, we are much broader. And then the second thing is this thing I talked about, which is semiconductors, silicon, system, and data. So we have invested for the last 5 years into move into system design and analysis. So I believe this merger is inevitable. And now more and more people see it. It was not obvious like 5 years ago. This merger of system and semi is going to happen. So we are also leading the charge into designing not just chips, but the link of chips to systems and packaging. And there are a lot of technologies like 3D IC, and then, design of thermal. Because even in cars and phones, thermal is a big issue, electromagnetic is a big issue. So that's the second differentiation we have, is this move into not just chip design, but system design and analysis.
Got it. All right. Here's a question that I'm not sure if you're going to be wanting to answer, or you can just let me know if you don't want to answer this, but it says, when you think about AI applications, which sectors do you see leading? And I know you mentioned life sciences as sort of a really exciting area. And would you be willing to disclose or talk about companies that you see leading the way? that could have transformational impact? I mean, I think you could probably just answer part of that question that you're comfortable with.
Right. I think AI to me, okay, in the end is a horizontal technology. Okay, what I mean by that is that it can be applied to a lot of things. I mean, and that's the one part of AI, that it can be applied to a lot of things. But the real value will be, and that's what we're talking about first. Like we are working with companies that are building out the infrastructure, right? Whether it's, you know, uh, chip companies or data center companies. But the real value will be the verticalization of it. So I think in the end, everybody will have access to the basic AI techniques and models and infrastructure. The real value will be how you apply it to your own products. Just like we are trying to apply it to our own products, like how well do you apply it to search or, medicine or cars or, self-driving. And so I think it's too early to say, there, of course, some people are ahead of the others, but I think it's still in the early stages. So the horizontal part will be critical and there's a lot of, value that can be created. But I do believe the real value will be the verticalization of it. It's a domain specific application of AI to a particular application. See, that's why I read some comments, they say, all you need is the data scientist. I don't really believe that. Of course, data scientists will be critical to build the horizontal infrastructure, but the real value always is when that is applied to a particular vertical, whether that's finance or medicine or cars. And that is always knowing the current technology and the new technologies together. So I think that's still to come. Yeah.
Got it. All right. This is an interesting question, but, I think I don't know how you're going to answer this, but it says, is it realistic to use natural language to design chips through AI, or do you see that potentially in the future?
Well, that's a good question. And one value of these language models, foundation models, is you can talk. They can talk to you, right? I mean, just like they can see and listen. That's what the big thing is. So, what is the application of that to like chip design or like programming in general? I mean, chip design. You start with like we have some language like Verilog that describes the chip in a formal language, and then you do a lot of implementation, optimization, all kinds of stuff. And that's true in programming in general. So I think it can help. So when I look at the design process, there are two parts of the design process. So one is actually designing the chip, like actually optimizing the placement of the blocks, how fast they run, how much power they consume, do they actually do what you're supposed to do? So there, I think AI can help by doing the design better. But a big portion of the design is also debugging and analyzing the data, running the tools. Okay, there I think language can make it a lot easier. So we will still need the fundamental software, but interacting with the software can be more through natural language than by programming language, which is like Python or C++ or Verilog. So whether it can completely do it by natural language is to be seen. But I always believe the AI, I personally am a believer that AI can give a lot of automation, but not 100% automation. See, it's very difficult to go to 100%. And you can see that with self-driving, you can get a lot of things that make the cars easier to drive, but make it to completely driverless is very, very difficult. Yeah, that's what's happening. But to make sure that if an engineer was designing one block, that engineer can design, he or she can design 5 blocks, that's like a, 80% productive boost is definitely possible. So I think this language models, natural language models can help improve productivity, but I don't think you can completely remove it's very difficult and may not be even possible to completely make it driverless. But a 5x productivity is huge. 10x productivity is huge in the design process.
Got it. This is actually a tangentially related question to how you just answered that. But in a book called Human Compatible by Stuart Russell, it was recommended by Richard Gu of Cadence. And I'm 3/4 of the way through. I think it's a great book, great recommendation. Stuart Russell sort of made the observation that he thinks it's possible that AI, generative AI, or general purpose AI is what he calls it, could have the potential to eliminate as much as 1 billion jobs in the future, but replace it by only 10 million data scientists. And I guess, what is your opinion on the transition to AI and how it will affect jobs in the future? And maybe it's going to happen in phases as well.
Right. Well, one thing, these are deep, this is difficult, deep questions, as you know. But one thing, my dad was a mathematician, right? So mathematicians, they always talk in like 100-year increments. I don't know if you know. They don't talk like, in small time constants. So if you really step back and look at what AI is, right? So what is fundamentally AI? Because that's important to define first. But before, one way I looked at it was a very interesting article or book that talk about like 3 fundamental sciences. Okay. So give me like a few minutes. I explain that, and then I answer the question that you asked. So they say there are 3 sciences. So first, there's science of, and there are 3 P's that determine that. So the first P is place, PLACE, place. And the science of place, the mathematical foundation is geometry. Okay. And that's what the first science that happened with humans, right? And this is Greece or India or China, 2000 years ago, is geometry, trigonometry, astrology, all that is started with science of place. Okay? And that's 2000 years ago. Then the second big science is science of space, which is PACE. So that's derivative. Okay, so that's calculus, differential equations. Listen, Richard Newton, that's 400 years ago. Okay, and that's the transformational thing. Calculus and, whatever, actually, a lot of things we are doing now is all driven out of calculus. Okay, even in computer, differential equations, all this. And then they say, okay, the third fundamental science in human, whatever, experience is science of pattern. PATTR, pattern matching and all that. Okay. Now, it's possible, of course, we will not know for sure. We will know in the next, 10, 20 years. It's possible that this latest set of AI techniques, this neural network-based training and all, is a foundation of that pattern-based science. Okay. And, even you look at our own products, we have all 3 in them, right? We have geometry, of course, a lot of the layout of the chip and, a lot of things, physical things. We have calculus, and now we have these pattern-based AI methods. Now, if it is that foundational, and it has potential of being that foundational, then we are like, this could last for hundreds of years. This is not a small time thing. This could be a massive infusion in productivity, just like, the Industrial Revolution was or geometry was. Now, the question is, how does it affect jobs? I think that's a little bit over. I do believe that it like, if you look at calculus now, right, 400 years later, do you say like, does it remove job? I mean, it's a horizontal technology. Okay. So yes, some people will build the horizontal technology of science of pattern, but the real value, and some jobs will naturally get displaced, that naturally happens. But the real value again is always the verticalization of it, applying it to a domain specific thing. And that requires jobs and people and expertise. So I'm much more optimistic than, people project that some of the jobs will move around, just like they moved around with the Industrial Revolution, right? You have, steam engines, so you don't need but the new jobs will be created, and the new jobs I disagree that they will only be data scientists. I think the real value is always the verticalizations, applying it to a particular domain, and that will create a lot of new jobs.
Okay. Actually, and it kind of reminds me of a question that was brought up earlier in another discussion, which is, someone had pointed out that there have been a lot of advancements in robotics and many advances in AI, but they wanted to get your perspective on why there hasn't been advancements in AI and robotics and what that could mean as well.
Yeah, that's a very tough problem. And there's a lot of advancement in robotics. See, AI, right now what the new models is, they can talk and see, right? This pretty fundamental thing. That's what these language models allow you. They're multimodal, right? So they are also, you will soon see all this application, not just to text, which we are seeing now, but also to images, right? You will be able to create and edit images. So the way to look at it is that they can talk and see now, okay? But they cannot act yet because of, that requires the interaction with the physical world, of course. And I think robotics, one thing we do very well, apart from talking and seeing, is act with, fine motor skills, right? I mean, this is very difficult to replicate in a robot. It right now has not. So the ability we have to control, fine motor skills is significant. So that is a huge potential if were to happen. See, if robotics were able to master. Now, there are some large-scale robots, of course, in industrial settings, and you can argue cars can be robots. But if the robots can do fine-grained control, which I know they're working on, it may be one of the next big things we talk about. If we are having this conversation 10 years from now, maybe robotics is the big thing, and that has applications to medicine and, household help, all kinds of stuff. And then I think the application of robotics and AI will be truly transformational. Because if you can do fine motor skills and talk and see, then it's a transformational application. So that I'm looking forward to. Hopefully somebody will solve that problem. I know a lot of people are working on it, on making robotics have much more fine motor skills.
Great. Okay. This is another question, which is, with the advances in AI chips, is the current internet infrastructure adequate to support this, or do we need to have an upgrade cycle?
Oh, there's always need for upgrade cycles. I mean, the thing is that, I mean, the real power of AI is also in parallel processing. See, that's the one beautiful thing about GPUs. The reason they are better is because they have a lot more cores in them, than a typical CPU. And AI, if you go back to the fundamentals, AI is I don't want to get too technical, but it's a matrix multiply operation. Okay. The inference in AI is a multiplication of two matrices or matrix vector product, and training is a successive multiplication of two matrices. Okay. So it's something called, iterative methods. So that's why we need specialized hardware. Okay. But by nature, these processes are parallel. That means you can do a lot of them in parallel. And these models are now with 1 trillion parameters. So when you train these 1 trillion parameters, you can do a lot of computation in parallel. Okay? So that requires that it's not just one chip that has to work. Multiple chips connected together have to work. So there is a lot of innovation in how well these chips are connected together, not just how powerful one chip is. And this can be on your data center, on your cloud. So the connectivity and storage of these things, not just the compute, is super critical. And you can see, there's a lot of innovation in the connectivity between the chips and between servers. And that needs to get faster and faster. And there's a lot of innovation happening there. But all that has to be refreshed so that, there's no point making the chip much faster, but it doesn't talk fast to other chips or other computers. And of course, there is a internet connection, right, which is also getting faster with 5G, 6G, other things. But also there is a connectivity in the data center or within the car. If you look at the car infrastructure, that's also completely redesigned now, in the in-vehicle kind of communication and the data center. So that's the other thing, that it's not just the chips for AI, it will also drive a lot of refresh of the surrounding infrastructure.
Right. That's helpful. We have time for 2 more questions. We still have 22 unanswered questions, but this is something that I know you've shared some really important views in the past on, which is, what's your view on the potential US-China conflict regarding technology and how it affects the overall semi-industry?
Well, that's another tough question, Tom. And I think that, first of all, we follow all, US regulations and we support all the actions. And, semiconductors became I mean, US invented them, maybe 50 years ago or so. Uh, but now they became like super critical in all kind of national policies, I believe. Okay. And that's not just true in US. I was in Europe a few months ago, in Brussels, your EU is looking into that. And of course, all the Asian countries, China, India, Korea, Taiwan. So I think it became almost a fundamental technology for the future. Okay. And I think this US China policies, I think to the effect to Cadence is fairly limited and manageable because they're targeted on a specific set of actions. But we are pretty diversified both in terms of geography and kind of end markets. So for us, it's a limited impact. But I think that's something that is an important technology. So the countries have to, and more they talk, I think it's good to see now there's a lot of discussion, more they can resolve that. But there seem to be targeted applications right now of controls, which is the right way to go about it than a broad set of controls.
Great. Now, do you have? This is correlate. This is a corollary to that. But do you? What are because I know, and in fact, I know you spend and have been consulted by Washington and the White House frequently. But what is your thoughts on how the U.S. is handling some of these technology conflicts?
Well, no, that's not my expertise. I mean, that's I think for the policymakers, and I think, but overall, we are supportive of what the U.S. is doing, and we do our part. And just like we are supportive of all the other actions by other countries, and we participate in that.
Great. And then let's see. I'm going to just go to one last question here. Can you explain Cadence's Virtuoso Technology and how it's transformative to the semi industry?
Yes, absolutely. So Virtuoso is our flagship platform for analog design. So what happens is when you design these chips, some of them are digital, like it's and or digital computing, like ones and zeros. And some parts of the chip are, of course, analog, like the cameras and, audio and how you're sensing the world. So Cadence has a leadership position in analog for a very long time, and Virtuoso is the flagship platform for, I don't know, 3 decades. So almost all analog design is done using Virtuoso. And then, there are other tools on top of that, that do simulation and optimization. So that's our flagship platform for analog design. And then we have another flagship platform for digital design, which is Innovus. So most of the like TSMC and a lot of these leading customers, TSMC's customers are using Innovus for digital design. So that's the unique value of Cadence is we have Virtuoso, which is the flagship for analog, and Innovus, which is the flagship platform for digital. And most of the chips in the world are mixed signal by nature. You have some analog, some digital. The percentages may vary based on the application. And so we can provide a complete platform to our customers for both of these applications. Like a lot of the auto chips have a lot of analog content. I mean, you would be surprised how much analog content is there in even supposedly digital chips. So, and then the other thing is packaging. And we also have a very strong position in packaging. I like how this chip talks to the outside world. It goes through a package and a board. And then, like if you open up your washing machine, the first thing you see is not the chip. You see a PCB and a package, like a PC board, or if you open up your computer. So we also have a pretty leadership strong position in PCB and package design. So Virtuoso is for analog, Innovus is for digital, and then Allegro is our platform for package design.
Great. Well, we're finally at 3:00. That hour just flew by quickly. Anirudh, I don't know if you have any last words you'd like to say to the group.
Well, first of all, thank you for hosting me and thank you for listening to me. And I think what I would like to say is, I mean, of course, a lot of people don't know, like you said, what Cadence is. So I just, we just want to remind people that, we are not making the chips, but we are we are essential to the design process. So, in terms of all these semiconductors and, electronic systems. And then we have big investment in R&D, because you have to keep innovating. This is technology business. And then, the three areas I mentioned, the chip design, the system design, and AI, and to work with all the great, customers and partners. And we have this, culture of trying to form great partnership with all these leading companies. And at the same time, having a very strong financial discipline, both revenue growth plus margin, focusing on profitability and EPS growth. And thanks again for listening and providing us a forum to share our thoughts.
Yes, this was great. Thank you. I know our members are going to gotten a lot from this conversation. So hope everyone has a great day, and we'll all speak to you soon.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, bye.